three main coatings I offer: Opti-Coat Pro, single layer; Opti-Coat Pro Plus is a dual layer; Opti-Coat Pro 3 is a four-layer coating, and I'm going to talk about that one. So first, I'm going to describe kind of what Opti-Coat Pro 3 is. Opti-Coat Pro 3 is kind of think of it as the maxed out version of Opti-Coat Pro and Pro Plus. So Opti-Coat Pro, the Pro line uses silicon carbide. Silicon carbide is a very hard, durable material. Now, most ceramic coatings are made with silicon dioxide or SiO2, and they tend to have less durability but more gloss, but that gloss is very short-lived. And most coatings are made with that. They're pretty easy to use, and they're more versions of that one. There might be some silicon carbide in some of those coatings, but nevertheless, but they're decent coatings. They have some really, really high gloss, and I've seen some of them, and they look really good. Silicon carbide is it's a more dense material. It's harder. It's more durable. So Opti-Coat Pro 3, think of Opti-Coat Pro and Pro Plus having a certain amount of silicon carbide in it. So Pro 3, think of putting even more silicon carbide, more of those hard, durable resins, basically taking it to where you can't put any more in it, or it then crosses over into it becomes a paint protection, liquid paint protection, like OptiShield. Opti-Coat Pro 3 bridges the gap between something like a liquid paint protection film and the lower grade coatings. It's kind of right there in the middle, and it is a four layer, so it's two different syringes of a coating. It has the base coat, and then it has a top coat. So the two base coat layers go on one after the other. They're put on in succession. You have to put it on in a certain amount of time because it actually ends up going into the other coating. I'm going to demonstrate that here in a little bit. Then the top coat, two layers. So it ends up being four layers. And as with all of the Opti-Coat Pro line, technically, even a multi-layered coating, I can't speak for anybody else's, technically they're not two layers. It's all one layer, right? So you put the one layer down, the next layer kind of goes into the other one, right? And then they all ultimately go into the clear coat. So they're not sitting kind of floating on top. They're actually riding those contours of the clear coat, and it's going into it. Think of it like this. If you put carpet on a wood floor, you've got carpet on the floor. That's kind of like a wax or sealant, or maybe a low-grade ceramic coating. Kind of just sits on top, and eventually it just kind of works its way off. Usually not very long, months or maybe a year or something like that. Whereas if you pour water onto a wood floor, it actually goes into the wood. Now imagine if that was the coating that we're putting onto the clear coat, the wood being the clear coat, the water being the coating. The coating goes onto a foam applicator and kind of work it in, and then it starts to sink into and you can actually see it disappearing, and then it turns into a rainbow. Once it hits that rainbow, that means it has gone into the clear coat, and it's very, very, don't wait too much longer, and it's telling you, hey, I'm almost ready for you to level me to make sure everything's nice and level and even. Coatings don't like to stand tall. One part of the coating stands taller than another. It ends up looking like an oil spot that you cannot wipe off once if you let it go. So it's like that. It goes in and then becomes part of, but is yet still sitting on the top, which is actually really, really cool technology. And think of it this way. Clear coat is very similar to a ceramic coating. It just doesn't have any silicon carbide in it. It does have some resins. It has some UV absorbers, but it does not have the amount of UV absorbers that a ceramic coating does. It's also a liquid. It gets sprayed on and carried along by solvents, and then the solvents evaporate and the clear coat hardens, and there you are. Now, Opti-Coat Pro, Pro Plus, and Pro 3. Opti-Coat Pro is, I would say, it's 3 microns. Think of a human hair as 20 microns to up to 40 microns, generally speaking, and then in between. Opti-Coat Pro is about 3 microns. Pro 3 or Pro Plus is also 3 microns. Pro 3 is about, I'm going to say, 8 to 10 to maybe 12 microns, just depending on how much the paint lets you put down, which is significantly more. It's also a higher silicon carbide content it is much harder than Pro and Pro Plus. It's glossier, it adds deeper color, it's thicker, it's harder, it's more durable, has a longer warranty. It's all around, it is a much better coating. Now, Opti-Coat Pro for me is 1200, Pro Plus is 1700, Pro 3 is 2500. Just to kind of give you an idea of the prices. 5-year warranty, 7-year warranty, 10-year warranty, or if you want a lifetime warranty, you can definitely purchase that one. With that being said, I'm just going to demonstrate very quickly. I want to help you understand kind of ceramic coatings. So we're going to do Opti-Coat Pro, right? So if you think of clear coat, if we think of like a microscopic, if we shrunk ourselves down to the kind of the level of the clear coat, and we look at it kind of from like maybe a side cutaway, clear coat has peaks and valleys, right? So just like the edge of a razor blade, it's going to have those peaks and valleys. So this is the clear coat right here, and then everything underneath is like the paint, primer, and metal, and all that stuff. So a coating goes on to the clear coat. Something it just rides like this. It does not. It rides the contours of the clear coat. And this is every single coating that has any kind of durability. It's actually going into it like I described earlier. Think of like pouring water onto wood. Not only is it on top, it's also in the wood as well. Imagine like varnish on the clear on wood. It's going into it as well as it is on it, and this is kind of the idea here. So whatever that distance is from the clear coat to the top of the coating, that's its thickness. A certain durability as well. So Opti-Coat Pro, it's about 3 microns thick. And then you have the next step, PRO, not PO. The next one up is Opti-Coat Pro Plus, right? So it's going to be the same base layer, the same thickness. It's going to be riding those contours just like Pro. It's the same. These two coatings have the same base layer. The difference is Pro Plus is going to have an additional top coat, right? So you could put wax on a coating or sealant or Opti-Coat Ultra Shine. They're all temporary. They're all going to come off. Well, Pro Plus, the plus part is an additional gloss layer. Doesn't add any thickness. It doesn't necessarily add any hardness. It's just gloss. And it goes on or goes into within an hour. So putting that plus layer on in less than an hour will add a layer of glossiness to that top layer. And then those two go into each other, which everything ultimately goes into the clear coat. So kind of backtracking a little bit, the coating goes into the clear coat, becomes part of it. The plus part goes into the coating, which also goes into the clear coat. So they're all kind of connected. They're all in the clear coat, and they're also all on it. Opti-Coat Pro 3, kind of what the difference is here. I would say I don't know why I made so many peaks and valleys. So this to this is a big jump compared to this to this. So Pro to Pro Plus, Pro to Pro 3, big jump, big jump. So what ends up happening here, so this is also 3 microns. 3 microns, 3 microns. This is about 8 to 10 microns. A human hair is 20 to 40 microns thick. So if you get a piece of hair, kind of pinch it between your fingers or just look at it, or a Post-it note, pinch that between your fingers. That's how thick clear coat is. So we're dealing with 3 microns or 8 to 10 microns. So we're talking about enough thickness, and they don't need to be any thicker than this to be able to do their job. It's not like, oh wow, if I want it to last, it's going to need to be thicker. Now this is a lot of super nerdy information. It does not need, all it needs to be thick enough is to be able to ride those contours. So if we go Pro 3, so we're stacking it a little taller, So again, the distance from the where the clear coat is to the top of the coating, that's your thickness. So all of this in between here, compared to all this in between here, the Pro 3 is going to have more. So silicon carbide, or SiC, is the kind of the backbone, the strength. There's some other things in there, bunch of big names. I only know a little bit about this stuff, very teensy. All I'm doing is kind of scratching the surface because this is as much as I know. But silicon carbide is kind of the skeleton of the coating. It's the strength, it's the durability. There's also SiO2, which is silicon dioxide, silicon carbide, silicon dioxide. Most coatings are SiO2. Very few are silicon carbide based. Now, some of these coatings, SiO2, can have some SiC in it, but usually SiC doesn't have much of what the SiO2 coatings do have. It doesn't really need anything else. People, chemists put this and this and this and this, silicon carbide and these other things to make it stronger and more durable, when all you really need is this. But most people don't make them silicon carbide. I don't know why. I think because this is I'm just, from kind of my perspective, SiC is a more unique and more difficult to create material. So I know it's more expensive, and it is a much, for me, using Opti-Coat, it's a much more durable coating base, right? So this Pro 3, let's just say, for kind of a stupid example, on a scale of 1 to 10, if Opti-Coat Pro has a level of 6 SiC, right? None of this is really accurate or chemically scientific. So this would have 6 on a scale of 1 to 10. It looks like a G being a 6. This one is about a 9.8. It's maxed out as much silicon carbide as it can have without it crossing into the next category, which is OptiShield, Opti-Coat's liquid protective film. I'm going to talk about that one a little bit just because we're on the topic and I don't feel like making a second video. And I love this nerdy information. So hopefully you're hanging on to this nerd fest. So Pro 3 is kind of a maxed out version. It's a lot more silicon carbide. Maybe this number is even 4. I don't know. But this Pro and Pro Plus don't have the amount of silicon carbide in. And also, Pro 3 is 4 layers. There is a base layer and there's a top coat layer, right? So just to kind of understand the base layer of Pro 3. The base layer is 1 syringe of 20 cc's of Pro 3, and it gets put on twice. You have a clock. The clock, as soon as that first layer goes down, as soon as you put the first section on the first part of the car, the clock starts ticking. You have an hour or less to get the next layer on, and that layer is going to kind of go into it and become more dense. That's why it's thicker. And that's why there's also, in one layer, has more silicon carbide. So as you're building those 2 base layers, then you build those 2 top coat layers. So what is the base layer? It's mostly just silicon carbide with whatever else is in it. The top coat, the 2 layers of the top coat, so 2 syringes, 2 base layers, and the top coat 2 layers. What's in the top coat layer is a silicon carbide, silicon dioxide hybrid. So in other words, just like Pro Plus, you're putting a permanent, or let's just say permanently conjoined top coat on, instead of putting, okay, I could put Opti-Coat Pro 1 layer, and then I could put Opti-Coat Ultra Shine on top of that. Now I create a really slick, shiny surface, extremely glossy, but that Ultra Shine, because it's just silicon dioxide, right? A little bit of SiC in it just for a little bit of durability, get an extra year or so. But it's not permanent because it has more silicon dioxide and very little silicon carbide. Whereas Pro 3 or Pro Plus, the plus part, the top coat of Pro 3 has about an equal amount of silicon carbide and silicon dioxide, maybe more silicon carbide, but it has a good amount of the silicon dioxide in there to give it that gloss, but enough SiC to make it permanently stick inside the two base layers to then perpetually all be one and maintain and continue its shine. Now, what is LPF? Liquid protective film, or you could call it liquid paint protection film, some people call it. So what is LPF? These are ceramic coatings. Of course, I didn't talk about Ultrashine, so I have them in order of kind of durability and so forth. Ultrashine will be over here. It's SiO2, and it's mostly SiO2. It lasts about 3 years. It can be added to any one of these three coatings. Opti-Shield is the reason it's a film. I like to call it a film, or you could call it liquid paint protection. Happy little tree. Happy. Draw some happy little trees. The film, however you want to look at it, it's because, so what's the film? So if factory clear coat is, let's say it's 40 microns, right? There are 25 microns to a mil. So that's 1.5 mil, let's say, of clear coat. So Opti-Shield is, it could be single layer, double layer, 4-layer, and then you can even put actually any one of these three coatings on Ultrashine on here. Should have done Ultrashine, maybe I'll just do a separate video for that one. Opti-Shield is, think of it this way. So let's talk about, because it's a, I want to call it a liquid protective film, let's talk about 4 layers of it. So we put 1, 2, 3, 4 layers on. Let's say we're somewhere like this. And then it actually is because it's tall enough, it's doing something like that, right? So it's actually building a film because it's tall enough. Now maybe it's not quite that high, right? This is kind of a stupid, drawing on a wall, but this is kind of all filled in because we're creating a film. And not only that, the film, it even might be down here. You know what I mean? It might be going something like that. It might be, but it's thick enough because 4 layers of Opti-Shield is about 30 microns. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less. It just depends on how much we're laying down. You're supposed to put as much down as you can. 30 cc's per syringe, and it's 30, 60, 90, 120 cc's to do all four layers. So it's actually building about 30 microns, which is a little bit over 1 mil. So how much clear coat do we have? About 1.5 mil, or 40 microns. We have 30 microns of Opti-Shield, our liquid protective film. So it's almost as thick as the factory clear coat. Now, keep in mind that not only is it almost as thick, it's so much harder than the factory clear coat. It's also self-healing. It also adds a ton of depth and gloss. And why is that? It has even more silicon carbide than the Pro 3, which also has more silicon carbide than Pro Plus and Pro, and then Ultrashine, which is not here on the wall. But that's why Opti-Shield it's in a different category. It's kind of a new category. So this LPF replaces the traditional, if you're familiar with paint protection film, which is an extruded. Now it's extremely thick. It's 8 mil thick, but it has to be. It has to be that thick because if you have ever seen it on a car or held it in person, it's very stretchy. Like I could grab it and I could just like start pulling and pulling and pulling, and then you can even like push a pen through, and it'll stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch. I mean, it'll stretch incredibly far. It's extremely soft. It's spongy. It's like a big shock absorber. So when stuff hits it, it kind of bounces off. Now, every piece of PPF on a car I've ever seen has always had some sort of damage to it. A rock, a scratch all the way through. I've seen cats, jump off of a hood with a PPF on it, and it ripped right down into the metal, all through the PPF and everything into the metal. So, but it is the most expensive form of paint protection. It's usually 8 to 10 grand to do a full car. Most people only do part of a car. With Opti-Shield, you can actually do the whole car for less, way less than PPF. So, so Pro 3 has less silicon carbide, but as much as it can, as much as it could possibly have, and still be categorized as a ceramic coating. And why is it only a ceramic coating? Because it's only about 8 to 10 microns compared to 40 microns of clear coat or 30 microns with LPF, Opti-Shield. Clear coat is 40 microns. So we can't categorize Pro 3 or Pro Plus or Pro as LPF because it's too thin. We can categorize OS as an actual film because we're building a layer, just like this, illustrated similar to this. It may not rise to the total tall peak, but it's definitely creating a, a layer. It's actually building a layer. Um, Not saying it's impenetrable. I'm sure rocks can still punch through, but instead of like PPF where it's spongy, this is actually very hard. It's self-healing. It can be repaired. If a scratch gets in it, you can polish it, and we could put more on. With Pro 3, if we needed to polish it and repair it, we would have to go back and do all 4 layers, where with OS, we just have to do 1 layer. Hopefully this made sense and it wasn't too super nerdy. And don't worry, I paint my walls every year, and I'll be doing that. I'll be doing that soon, probably in March. But thanks for watching, and I'm gonna get out of here because I'm bored. This is so boring. Oh my goodness. That was the nerdiest thing I've ever done.